you may already be a winner. Or so that's what the outside of the envelope says. Kurt L. Stutler, 307 Cumberland Way, Anderson, South Carolina. You are already a winner. Well, but then in that little tiny font that is so minuscule you would need a microscope to read it, it says that if you have the 12 winning prize numbers assigned to you, selected in our drawing, August 31st, 2019, you may win $10 million. Have you ever gotten something that looks like that in the mail? Anybody here ever really won something? Even though I know it's more likely that I will be struck by lightning or kidnapped by a terrorist than to win one of those sweepstakes, I must admit that for a split second my heart quickens every time I see one of those envelopes arriving in the mail. For within us all, there seems to be this deep longing to be a winner. Near to where I grew up in Indiana, several years ago they brought in riverboat casinos. And these once sleepy small Indiana river towns have now become tourist and gambler meccas. In fact, one of them, Rising Sun, Indiana, a town of less than 1,500 people, now has a 350-room Hyatt hotel, complete with an 18-hole golf course, restaurants, a 2,500-seat theater, and Wayne Newton has come to town. Right? Cars and buses bringing in people by the thousands every day to play the slots, hoping against all hope that they will be a winner. It was just a few months ago, you may recall, someone purchased a winning ticket in Simpsonville, South Carolina, that claimed them the Powerball prize of $1.6 billion. And you may remember the person waited until the last possible day to claim it. Where did that $1.6 billion come from? Well, it came from the tens of millions of other folks who put down their dollars or their $10 or their hundreds of dollars, hoping against all hope that they would be a winner. Big business to government to even charitable organizations alike have tapped in to this innate desire within us all to be winners. South Carolina really was one of the last states to finally resort to using a lottery as the way to fund our education system. So much for the noble idea that equal access to an education for all is a worthy goal of a free society. We'll get people to pay for education by playing towards their greed, right? But lest we think ourselves here in South Carolina more holy than our neighboring states, even though we held out for a lottery longer than the others, you remember before we had the lottery, what did we have? The poker machines in the back room of every convenience store, right? Well, my intention this morning is not to talk on the morality of gambling. But I do want us to think about our desire and the desire of those around us to be winners. What does it take to be a winner in life? What's the criteria we use for determining who are the winners and who are not? How do we decide in our own lives whether or not we are winners? And do we feel like we're winners this morning? And most important, in God's eyes, who are the winners? You see, in any kind of game or contest or competition, in order for there to be a winner, what does there also have to be? Losers. In fact, it would seem that there's a whole lot more losers in our world than there are winners. In the Powerball jackpot, there was that one single individual, but then there was the tens of millions of others who were losers, right? In the casino of the riverboats or the Cherokee Reservation or Las Vegas or Atlantic City, there's a whole lot more losers walking out of those places than there are winners. And right now, there are some 30 Major League Baseball teams playing America's favorite pastime. But next October, this coming October, there'll be 30-some minus one losers and one winner, right? Whether it's a spelling bee or a softball tournament, a college scholarship, or a church award, there are more losers than there are winners. Such is the nature of competition in our world. I believe it was Will Rogers, I might be wrong about this, but I believe it was Will Rogers who said something like this: God must love the ordinary man, he made so many of them. So I guess we could say God must love losers, for it seems like he made so many. Conventional wisdom would tell us that in order for us to clarify who are the winners in this world, we have to identify the losers. In other words, we think that for us to feel like we're winners, we have to figure out who we beat. Who are we better than? Who are the losers we outshine? And so we go about the business of putting people in categories so we can figure out who's a winner and who's a loser. And in our history, there are tragic, irreprehensible examples of the evil which is done when we try to use categories of race or gender or education level or sexual orientation or culture to label one group as winners and the others as losers. Now, even more embarrassing and sickening, really, is when religion has been used as that mark. To this day, we have folks using the name of Christ to state their narrow views as making them winners, and all who disagree with them, losers. When we turn to the Bible, what so frequently happens is that our so-called conventional wisdom is shattered, and our view of the world gets turned upside down. For suddenly the first become last, and the last become first. The pious religious Pharisees have their hidden sin of self-righteousness exposed, and the prostitute down in the dirt has her noble humanity raised. The older, more experienced, more sophisticated, more stable brothers are passed by, and the young, unexperienced shepherd boy is made a king. The losers become winners, and the so-called winners find that what they thought was winning was not really winning at all. Just when the people of God thought they had the system all nailed down, if you're a child of Abraham, you were a winner, right? Yes. Everybody else was a loser. Just when they thought they had everything figured out, God comes along and upsets the apple cart. God comes to the world through a common carpenter from an insignificant village in Palestine called Nazareth. And God says, we are all winners, irregardless of our background. Doesn't matter who we're related to. Does not matter how much money we make, or what side of town we live on, or what our criminal record might be, or whose politics we endorse, or how much talent we have, or even how hard we work. It doesn't matter when it comes to being a winner in God's eyes. Right. For you say, when you look into the message that is in this book, it says in bold print, you, and you can put your own name in the blank, you are already a winner. Amen. Did you get that? Yes. The songwriter says that God has made us winners. In his very act of creation, God gave us status. Just a little less than God, but right up there, crowned with glory and honor. And Paul says that it can be understood in one word: grace. You see, by grace, by God's gift of unconditional love and acceptance, we're declared winners. Blue ribbon, grand prize, winners. And we dwell in the company of other winners. There are tragic stories told from the battlefields of history before the days when communication was so instantaneous that oftentimes when a war was being fought and then was declared to have ended, it would take days, if not weeks or months, for that news to travel out into the places where people were waging the battles to get the news. And so what would happen is, after the war had ended and peace had been declared, there would still be folks out there battling on, losing their lives for no reason. You see, they were already winners, but they didn't know they were winners. Such is the tragic situation in our world. Folks from every walk of life live their lives blinded, unaware they're already winners. There are folks living like losers when they're really winners. There are folks denigrating, putting down brothers and sisters in God because they think they've got to make them out to be losers in order for themselves to feel like winners.
That's right.
And then there's those who've decided to simply give up, believing that there is no hope of them ever being declared a winner. But the message we have, the good news we've been given to share with the world is simply this: you are already a winner. It's already been declared. The contest is already over. And God has already said, you are a winner. Let's pray. As we begin this time when we approach the table of your grace and love, God, the very fact that we can come to this table is evidence of who you believe us to be. And that is, you have called us each one by name, and you have declared we are your precious children, and that you have given us all we need to live in this world in peace. We simply have to open our hearts to receive it. Forgive us, Father, and as we come to this table, may we lay down any need we have to declare ourselves better or worse than anybody else. And simply come to this table joining hands with our brothers and sisters in this family of faith in which we're all your children, is our prayer.